What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we're going to be talking about Duo number 2 and 3 by Greg Pak and Koi Pham. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down who are the Immutables and why are they trying to shut down Duo's nanomachine project. We're also going to talk about how XOMBI has become a far more powerful hero as Duo than he ever was in his original Milestone comic series, and why trying to be a superhero sharing your body with your dead wife is complicated AF.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so when last we left off, we learned that there was a secret organization of these immortals called the Immutables. We didn't really know exactly what they were. They weren't something from the original XOMBI run, at least not in name. But what we did learn here is that Dr. Marius Chung, who was this foremost pharmaceutical expert and an incredibly rich man, we discovered this guy has been around for a very long time. The Immutables have about roughly the same power that Duo does, eternally regenerating cells. All of them are incredibly old, with Marius really being the only one who says exactly how old he is, saying that he has lived for roughly 70,000 years. If you are familiar with the 80s movie as well as the follow-up 90s television series, The Highlander, this is kind of what they might remind you of. They don't run around talking about how there could be only one and cutting each other's heads off with swords and getting blown up with electricity when they do so, but what they are is something that only happens in every 1 in 1 billion people. And Marius even tells Dr. Kim that there's only about roughly 100 of them, or that there ever have been about roughly 100 of them at any one given time. And what they've decided to do with their immortality is try to protect the Earth, but not in the way that you might expect. They're not trying to protect the world from the supervillains that would try and take it over. What they're trying to do is protect the world from itself. Dr. Marius Chung has lived long enough that he knows what happens when people gain too much power. What he's afraid of that Dr. David and Kelly Kim were working on was something that would have given the same power of the Immutables to the general population. If everyone on Earth is immortal, then, well, for one, no one is really truly immortal, but worse, not everyone needs to live forever. It's one of those age-old things where people talk about how, oh, if you live forever, oh, you would eventually get bored. You would no longer be able to see the joy in life. It's something that's focused on in lots of, stories, movies, TV shows, whatever, about vampires and, other types of immortals. But the thing no one ever really talks about when it comes to being immortal is that being immortal is something that would literally, over time, drive you crazy. The human mind isn't meant to exist for that long. Eventually it goes bad. Even being an immortal, this is something you see in very few tales about immortals. You see it a little more now, but back in the day, no one ever really talked about stuff like this. The fact of the matter is, and what I really appreciate about what Greg Pak is writing here, is that they are focusing on the fact that if you are someone who is immortal, you will eventually, over time, after say, I don't know, 100 years, 1,000 years, your mind would not work the same way. You also wouldn't view time the same way as you used to. You think about how when you're a kid and an hour seems like it takes a week to get here, but when you get into your 40s, you feel like one day passes by in the blink of an eye. Imagine if you were 70,000 years old, what one day would seem like to you. It would probably feel like seconds had only passed. Marius is worried that humanity would turn on itself and eat itself alive if anyone was allowed to live as long as they have. One of the things he talks about is that most people would become sociopathic. They would lose their ability for empathy and they would just start killing each other willy-nilly. This is very similar to something we saw in a storyline for Naomi season 1, and I'm not talking about the CW show, I'm talking about the comic by Brian Michael Bendis, David F. Walker, and Jamal Campbell. In that comic, Naomi comes from another world where everyone suddenly got superpowers. You would think that would be a great thing, but it wasn't, because even the bad people got superpowers and they all started killing each other. Even the good people started killing each other. Imagine if every human in existence just suddenly couldn't die. They would eat each other alive. And the other thing that comes up is resource control. There would be no way for humanity to sustain themselves if everyone could pretty much just live forever. All resources would be depleted in almost no time whatsoever. And this is more getting over to the side of why it is so difficult for David and Kelly to share the same body now. And if you don't know why, the long and short of it is Marius sent assassins after David and Kelly to kill them so that that they wouldn't complete their research on the nanomachine technology that they were working on that would basically have given everyone the same immortality that he doesn't want them to have. And the nanomachines got loose, and in order to save David's life after he had been literally burned alive, the nanomachines consumed Kelly's body and used her matter to heal David. Hence why they're melded together. If you want to know more about that, there's a video up in the top corner. You can go check that out and learn all about that in more granular detail. When David Kim is interacting with Marius, it's not David who's interacting with him. It's actually his wife, Kelly, who is in his mind right now sharing his body with him since she no longer has a body of her own. Throughout the course of the 3 issues that have come out to this point, Kelly has had difficulty maintaining her consciousness within David's body because the nanomachines are constantly trying to push her out, seeing her as something that's not supposed to be there. She has to consistently concentrate, and not only that, David has to put himself in situations where he feels pain because feeling pain makes her react. So it's this tightrope act of trying to keep her in the forefront, and when Kelly realizes that she could just force David out of control and take over his body, and that there's very little that he can do to take it back, it's one of those situations where you discover, yeah, this would be a whole problem. Imagine being a married couple, one of you dies but is merged with the other person's, body, your consciousness is within theirs, you can see and hear and feel everything your spouse feels as they're walking around, or they can hear and see and feel everything you experience. It would just make things incredibly difficult. There's parts in this comic where he has to listen to his wife chastise him while another woman is pushing up on him at his dead wife's own funeral. Not only that, they see things very differently in terms of how to handle the Immutables, where originally Kelly wanted nothing more than to kill the Immutables, not realizing they were immortals, but wanting to kill them because of what they did to her, but now realizing what they were trying to do, she now gets it. But now that she gets it, David doesn't get it. He actually thinks the Immutables are a whole problem. Kelly sees the value in what they were doing, even if it did mean that they had to kill her. Now, one of the other things I did want to talk about with this is how much more powerful XOMBI is as a character now. Now, granted, when I say, and I know this is going to be kind of confusing, but when I say the character XOMBI, I'm talking about the original version of what Duo was back in the 90s. And once again, if you're not familiar with the character XOMBI, there's a video up top you can check out in the top corner all about XOMBI. It will tell you everything you need to know about that character. But originally, Kelly was not a major character in the XOMBI series. It was just David. This time around, they have made her a major player in this. She is the consciousness inside of his body and more of a character than what she was before. And in that original run, XOMBI was nothing more than a normal human who happened to have a really incredibly fast healing factor, maybe even beyond what you would see in Wolverine or Deadpool, closer to what you would see in Valiant's Bloodshot. He couldn't fly or do any of these other things, and we discovered that the nanomachines in his body in this iteration of Duo, they make him capable of so much more. Not only is he able to withstand all kinds of punishment and come back from it, he can literally heal from just about everything. Even at one point, one of the Immutables saying that probably the only way to kill him would be with a tactical nuke. And even then, he says it's a maybe at best. It used to be that XOMBI walked everywhere he went just about, but they can fly now. They also have the ability to metamorphose their body into various types of things. Like, there's a point where when Kelly is in control, she starts playing around with the nanomachines to figure out what all they're capable of. She reveals that she can basically polymorph herself, at least her hands, where we see her turn her hands and fingers into metal blades. Not only that, they can also phase through solid matter. Everything that Dr. David and Dr. Kelly Kim did to themselves with those nanomachines that turned them into Duo, it seems like the Immutables can do just about the same things, maybe even better. That they're able to fly as well as manipulate energy, and they also can suffer the same types of damage that even Duo can. Either way, we know that David and Kelly have allies somewhere out there that if the Immutables seem like they might be on that Fox News BS, it just so happens they have a friend on the outside by the name of Dr. Henry, a guy who Kelly sees as a professional rival because he did try to sabotage a lot of their grant work back in the early days, but it turns out they're working in similar fields. David and Kelly were working on nanomachines to heal people of all sorts of injuries and diseases and viruses. What Henry was doing was working on AI and robotics, creating what are essentially synthetic humanoids. And while we don't know exactly where this is going yet, we know that Dr. Henry is in on what's happening with the Immutables. He knows a lot more than what he's initially letting on, and now when it comes comes down to is whether or not David and Kelly Kim can pick a side, and I feel like they're both going to probably try and go in different directions, despite the fact that only one of them actually has a physical body right now. And I think that's supposed to be what is the draw behind this, that you're supposed to want to side with either one of them, but could also maybe see why either one of them would feel the way they would feel about something, and ultimately you would have to pick a side, and they are going to have to do the same. But the question is, who are they going to pick? Is Kelly going to win over David to the side of the Immutables, or is David going to win Kelly over to the side of Dr. Henry? Anyways, that's everything I want to talk about duo number 2 and 3. If you want to know more about XOMBI, check out this video up here. I break down the entire character, his comics history, everything you need to know about this character to hold an intelligent conversation about him. In the meantime, let me know what you thought about duo number 2 and 3. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.